there's been a lot of chatter and discussion around the future of Paramount after a settlement with Donald Trump. A lot of that has focused on CBS News and 60 Minutes, which was the heart of the lawsuit that Trump had filed. But not a lot of discussion about the future and how this affects late night hosts on Paramount-owned platforms. We saw Jon Stewart on his show on Monday, really not mincing words about this settlement, calling it shameful, and then having this actually pretty funny bit where they pretended that he was being censored by the network. But that really raises some of the questions of what David Ellison, who's coming in probably in the months ahead now, might do to reshape the network, both on Comedy Central, where Jon Stewart hosts on Mondays, or on CBS, where Stephen Colbert has helmed the Late Show there. What are you hearing, Oliver?
Well, I think that it's, like you said, there has been a lot of focus on CBS News and what is David Ellison, what are the Ellisons going to do when they come in? And as we've reported, they've talked to Barry Weiss about having a high profile role at CBS News. I think it's pretty clear that they want to remove what they consider to be a liberal taint, a liberal bias from the network. But if you are focused on that, then obviously, they might make some tweaks to news, but the real person, I think the real face of the network, at least at CBS, is Stephen Colbert. And the face of the network over at Comedy Central is Jon Stewart. And these are people who are antagonists of Donald Trump. They are reviled by conservatives. And so if you really wanted to remove the, liberal taint from CBS, the obvious thing I think you would do is get rid of Stephen Colbert, get rid of Jon Stewart. And I think there's a real possibility that, in a couple years, perhaps these two comedians are not at the network. I think they would never say that they're getting rid of these comedians because of their needling of Donald Trump, but they can certainly make the argument, perhaps, that for economic reasons, they're no longer investing in the diminishing linear platforms that these hosts are on. Over the years, obviously, their ratings have fallen. Comedy Central, where Jon Stewart's on, is basically a shell of its former self. It just basically reruns South Park until Jon Stewart comes on. He's only on once a week. He's probably paid a lot of money. So they could definitely make the argument, look, we're not investing in this anymore. It's not a growth asset for us. And his contract's up in December. So whether it's renewed, I think, is a real open question. Stephen Colbert's contract with CBS is up in 2026, so just next year. And again, you've seen not only CBS cut back on late night, they canceled After Midnight, which is the program, the late night show that aired after Stephen Colbert's, but NBC, they canceled one night of The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. It's now only airing 4 nights a week. They've got rid of late night bands. So there has been this push to cost saving, and I think you might see them make that argument. That said, obviously, I think the subtext, right, is clear that they might, as someone told me this week, a media insider who shall remain anonymous, what better bone could they throw? What better gift could they give to Donald Trump than to get rid of Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart?
Yeah. And we know Trump does not love, especially Colbert in particular. He's raged about Colbert several times, said, that they should fire him. Right.
He's overtly said it.
That's pretty powerful when the president of the United States, and we've seen these kind of, angry, lashing out at journalists, or in this case, comedians, saying, somebody, he needs to go. In this case, Trump had said, I could recommend someone much more talented and smarter who would do it for free. I'm actually kind of curious who he's maybe thinking about there.
We don't want to know. I don't know if we want to know.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. But that obviously matters, right? Like executive suites are reading this and they're paying attention to it. We know that. And part of this deal, I think, that raises this question that is that, look, obviously the Paramount is going to pay $16 million for the suit to settle, but we have since heard from Charlie Gasparino of the New York Post, which was confirmed by other outlets, including the Wall Street Journal, that there is this other seemingly behind the curtain deal with Donald Trump, like a handshake deal of some sort that will also throw in millions of dollars of public service announcement ads. Sounds like on CBS. It's unclear if it's across these platforms in order to get this deal across as well. That I think like that sort of raises the question of, is there more to this? There's
at least
more behind the
Donald,
scenes.
Yeah, at least Donald Trump thinks there's more to the settlement. I mean, Paramount obviously said they have no idea what he's talking about. Skydance has notably not commented. Whether Donald Trump, whether there was a deal, I think, remains to be seen. I mean, we will see if there are PSAs that run. I think it could also be part of what Brennan Carr over at the FCC extracts maybe in approving the merger, because he still has to approve this deal. But Donald Trump certainly is under the impression that he's getting, $10 to $15 million worth of ads for causes that he supports. And so, but beyond that, like, it's obvious that the Ellisons are catering to Donald Trump. Larry Ellison is obviously a Trump supporter. He's been inside the Oval Office and the White House. He's doing other business with the government. I think, it wouldn't be surprising if he ends up being the person who acquires TikTok in the United States. David Ellison has obviously been trying to court Donald Trump. He's been ringside at the UFC fights, kissing up to Donald Trump. And I think the Skydance folks would tell us, look, that's the way the business is done right now. But it certainly, it seems to be saying that the implication seems to be saying that business is done right now by giving Donald Trump things he wants, right? That you have to go and kiss the ring and bow down before him to get what you want to do business. And if that is the case, then, Stephen Colbert, particularly, who Donald Trump has repeatedly got into, he traded barbs with, would seem to be vulnerable in this moment. And I was talking to another person, a CBS insider who should also remain anonymous. And they were telling me that, look, since the 60-minute settlement, top talent over at CBS is very worried about whether this company will actually back them if Donald Trump comes after them. Mm-hmm. And someone like Stephen Colbert in particular is going to have to make the decision, do you want to be doing this kind of comedy at a network that might throw you under the bus later on? Because obviously there's a real likelihood that Donald Trump could sue. There's a real likelihood that Donald Trump could get really upset and make life very difficult for the Ellisons. And if that were to happen, would they have his back? And does Stephen Colbert, who can probably get a nice deal over at Netflix or wherever he wants, does he need to work for this company? And so not only will it probably be weighing on Ellison's mind, maybe on, do we want to keep this guy or not? But also on Colbert's mind, do I want to stay at this network or do something else?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that too. It does make you wonder whether or not these guys would even want to be there anymore.
Could he find a bigger audience elsewhere? I mean, maybe not, because this is still a large audience. He's still highly rated on the broadcast networks. He's the top broadcast network late night host. I say that because I know Fox News is listening, and they will say Greg Gutfeld beats him. But on late night, on traditional late night, Stephen Colbert reigns at the top. And
it's a different time slot too.
Yes, he reigns at the top, and it is still a powerful platform. But look, linear television is eroding, and if he's going to sign another 3-4 year deal, where is it going to be in 3-4 years? Would he have a bigger audience if he were doing something on Netflix? Would Netflix be interested in doing a live show with Stephen Colbert? They've obviously experimented with live comedy in the past. There are other options for him as the media ecosystem continues to evolve. And if this is also weighing on your mind and you don't think the company is going to have your back, I mean, it will be interesting to see in 2 years or, a year and a half or whenever, is Stephen Colbert still at CBS?